Welcome back to another episode of Sports Nerds in the Morning. Today, it's our first ever podcast where we are splitting up into groups. I'm Dominic Stern, and today I'm joined by
Josh Golden,
Lod Guymey, Jordan Goldman.
Today's podcast, we will be talking about the Super Bowl that just happened this prior Sunday and an outlook of the NFL offseason. We will be talking about the NBA, March Madness, and baseball in future episodes, but this is probably going to be one of our last podcasts for a while where we will be specifically talking about the NFL. So, obviously, this past Sunday was the biggest game of the year, the Super Bowl, featuring the New England Patriots and my Los Angeles Rams, and it was quite disappointing. Did not live up to the hype at all, with the New England Patriots winning their 6th Super Bowl by scoring only 13 points, and my Los Angeles Rams only scored 3. What would you guys like to start off with?
Let's start off with this. Let's give a big round of applause to Johnny Hekker. Johnny Hekker, outstanding player of the game.
absolute legend.
I don't care who won the MVP. Johnny Hekker won the MVP. Okay.
9 punts
9 punts.
with an average of
Super Bowl
46
record.
yards per punt. Longest punt was 65 yards. That's a Super Bowl record right there. Johnny Hekker was the most valuable player in the game for the Rams. No doubt.
As much as I want to talk about the Rams sucking, I would love to give it to my boy Dominic Stern over here, the Rams fan, and let him vent about the game.
So, before I criticize the Rams, I would just like to give credit to the New England Patriots before, because I feel like they played a better game defensively than we played worse offensively.
Absolutely.
I feel like you guys could agree with me on that. It was proven that Bill Belichick is the greatest head coach in the NFL right now, and can make
Ever.
a very, very strong argument that he's the best ever. Obviously, totally different eras. Do whatever you want. Anyways, as we said on our podcast prior to the one where we interviewed Tim Kirkchin and we did our Super Bowl preview, which you should listen to, by the way, we discussed how Bill Belichick is the greatest coach right now, and Sean McVay is the second. And it was proven on Sunday night how wide the gap is. And my dad was arguing with me. He's like, I don't even think Sean McVay is a top 5 coach. And I told him, I'm like, you're out of your mind. But whatever. The gap is huge.
The gap is
Very
large.
Huge.
But I said it before, and I'll say it again. I don't think McVay's the second best coach in the NFL. I do think it's Sean Payton. McVay's probably third, but there is an insanely large gap between Belichick and the next up.
Yes. So, huge credit to the Patriots. Had a great game plan to just go after Jared Goff. You know, third-year quarterback, looked kind of shaky coming down the stretch of the season and somewhat in the playoffs. And they did a great job of getting after him. And Brian Flores, great play calling on defense. He's going to be a special head coach for the Miami Dolphins once Bill Belichick leaves and Tom Brady leaves. Because you know that time period, it's coming up. Until they leave,
Been waiting for a long time for that time period to come
until
on.
they leave, the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins are going to be irrelevant. But if
I don't know if I'd go as far as irrelevant. Not winning the division.
thank you, Josh.
You could get wild card spots.
They will be irrelevant. But if you can wait out, if the Dolphins can wait out with Brian Flores until the Belichick-Brady era is over, which who knows how long it's going to be, I don't think it's going to last up to 5 more years. The Dolphins have a great shot at being one of the next big dynasties in the NFL if they make
With who?
if they make the right decision at quarterback, because their game plan is to tank this year or draft Kyler Murray or one of the quarterbacks this year and build a future dynasty. And if they do it successfully, if they wait it out, it could happen.
I think it depends how long Brady and Belichick stay there.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
No, correct. But if it's 5 years, they're in a better position. If it's 2 years, I think the Bills and Jets are in a better position because they're already starting to build their team up already. If 2 years from now, Brady and Belichick are gone, then it's going to be Josh Allen and Sam Darnold potentially fighting for the division crown. And whoever the Dolphins end up with a year or two from now, let's say it's either Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, Justin Herbert, whoever, that they'll still be a couple steps behind the Bills and the Jets. And I think it'll be those two teams battling it out.
And I think, looking at the New York Jets, they just signed Greg Williams as their defensive coordinator. I'm
Great
very
coach.
upset about that because
Spectacular coach.
I thought Greg Williams should have stayed with the Browns, but now he's in New York. They have a young quarterback in Sam Darnold. They have multiple wide receivers that are young and coming up. Quincy Enunwa is doing a little bit better. They have a couple tight end threats. So I think their defense is definitely an upgrade. I think their offense is slowly getting better. Darnold's going to start settling in. And that's a team that could definitely compete with the Patriots, at least, as Josh said, in 2 years' time frame. Along with that, you have the Bills, who are doing a good job. They found a new quarterback in Josh Allen. He seems like the guy
Beautiful.
there.
Franchise quarterback.
The running game isn't bad. It could be better.
The running game's going to improve when we pick up a running back in the draft this year. And we're going to improve the offensive line in free agency and a little bit through the draft as well. And we already have a great defense.
I agree. That defense is really gritty. And I think
second in yards per game this year.
Exactly.
First in passing yards per game.
And with the Jets, especially just focusing on them, I think you're going to have great defensive game plans for New England, and I think they're going to present tough matchups. We already saw New England struggle a little bit within their division this season, which is something we're not used to. And I think next season or 2 years from now, it could be interesting. You have Leonard Williams up front for the New York Jets. He's going to start emerging. So I think it's an interesting situation there. But I think in a couple years, it's going to be anyone's division to win, kind of like the AFC South the past few years. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see the developments with Brady.
Okay, now that we're talking about the AFC East, back to the Super Bowl, the Rams just did not adjust to what the Patriots were doing defensively. Because the Rams' defense played fantastic. If you would have told me that the Rams held the Patriots to 13 points,
you'd think you'd be holding the Lombardi
I thought we
Trophy.
would have been winning by like 2 possessions like they did. But the Rams did not adjust at all because Brian Flores and Bill Belichick, they established a game plan where they're just going to run stunts. We're going to put 7 guys at the line of scrimmage, and you don't know who's going to be rushing, and we're going to drop back and play man defense, play zone up the middle, and it worked to perfection.
Absolutely.
And Sean McVay did not adjust at all. So everyone's criticizing Jared Goff in the situation, and did he play well? No, he played
not at all.
He played horribly. But I really don't think it's his fault for his performance. I feel like because the O-line played terribly.
Correct.
That's partly because we didn't adjust, because Sean McVay didn't adjust. So
not even they didn't adjust. The Patriots just adjusted so well like they always do at halftime.
They didn't do anything differently in the first half or second half. They did the same thing, and the Rams didn't adjust, which is what we did so well over the regular season. It was so frustrating because I'm like, okay, we got significantly outplayed in the first half. We're only down by 3. We're getting the ball. We're going to go do something. And we kind of did. We drove the ball past midfield 2 or 3 times, which, compared to the first half was way better. But
compared to what the Rams have done in literally every other game this year, it was terrible.
It was terrible because Jared Goff was getting hit nearly on every play, and he was pretty rattled. It reminded me a lot of the game against the Bears, except this one was in a dome and not 15 degrees. So It was obviously very frustrating. The Rams did not perform well, but as I said earlier, give credit to the Patriots. They played better than the Rams played worse. Mm-hmm. Anyone else have anything to add on to their Super Bowl discussion?
Well, I think obviously the Rams are a very young team with Jared Goff and Todd Gurley being the faces of that franchise for sure, as long as Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball, who's under control for another, 3-4 years?
6.
6 years. Wow.
Well, it's 5 now.
5, exactly. Yeah. But this isn't the end of the Los Angeles Rams. They've got a bright young head coach as well. They'll be back here. I don't know about next year. Potentially they could be, but maybe a couple years down the line we'll see them back here again at some point. This definitely isn't the end of the Los Angeles Rams' reign. They'll win the division again this year, most likely, and they'll keep going.
Yeah. Also, why did Todd Gurley not get the ball? Because if he was unhealthy, if he was hurt, that's fine.
He had 10 carries for 35 yards.
But McVay said he was feeling fine. When he's
the highest paid running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
After that contract, he gets got for 4 years, $60 million. And in the Super Bowl, he got 10 carries for 35 yards.
Especially when you see that the passing game at this point was not working.
Exactly.
in that particular time. So why not give it to arguably the best running back in the league?
The best running back in the league.
Pull out a W. And I totally agree with you, Dom. I should have given the ball to Todd Gurley more.
Yes.
It was shocking to me to see how little they handed the ball off to Gurley and how little they handed the ball off in general. You saw that things weren't working for Jared Goff. Why not try to get the run game going? Try to see what you can do on the ground, and maybe that'll get the play action going for Goff, and things will slow down a little bit.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but why not get Gurley an opportunity with open space? It doesn't necessarily need to be a carry where he's running the ball, but give him a screenplay. Give him an opportunity to make a play in open field.
He had 1 catch for -1 yards.
Exactly, and that's why I think, guys like Gerald Everett at tight end, I know we're talking about running back, but also the utilization of tight end, they didn't do that enough in my opinion. I think Gerald Everett's a really good hybrid of a tight end and a wide receiver. They could have used him a lot more over the middle especially. And I think Todd Gurley in the passing game, he's not a Saquon Barkley in the sense that, he's going to go give you 100 receiving yards a game. Right. But go give him an opportunity to get open field, get his legs warm, go run a little bit, get 10 yards, get some confidence, and then give him a couple carries. I felt like he got swarmed on every carry. Mm-hmm. They tried to go to C.J. Anderson, a little bit more success, but not much of a difference. And because they couldn't get the running game going, that messed up the passing game.
Exactly.
And they still had great catches by some of their wide receivers, but it wasn't enough to get a touchdown, which is what they're known for.
There's just no way Todd Gurley was healthy in this game.
Well,
there's no way.
I think you're right, but when McVay says he's healthy, when he says in the week upcoming to the Super Bowl, he's healthy, he's 100%, and then after the game, he barely gets any carries, he says, oh, he's healthy. Like, are you either lying to us or did you just have a terrible game plan? Because the Rams' whole offense is set up on a zone scheme where you run the ball, let Todd Gurley make his cuts and whatever. He'll run the ball down your throat, then you hit the defense with play action, and you let Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Josh Reynolds, the 2 tight ends you were talking about, do their thing. And they never really tried to establish a run.
Exactly, and I think that essentially was the
That's
downfall
why
of the
we
Rams
lost.
in this game.
Yes, because the Patriots, you can't stunt against the run. That's not how it works. So because the Patriots knew we were trying to pass because we never tried to establish a run, they could do their stunts, and that's why I said, we didn't play well, we didn't have a good game plan. They did. That's why we didn't really get killed, but that's why we lost by 2 possessions in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Thank you. Thank God. We get to
give
move
Dom
on.
his little opportunity to rant about the Super Bowl. Let's let him forget about it for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and whatever you want to say, I've been made fun of by my friends this entire week, but
you had a good year.
Yeah, it's
they were
great.
Still
They'll be back.
Team.
Great season.
They were the better.
Yeah,
team.
I agree. On paper, they're still the better
not.
team. They're the more talented team. I think at wide receiver, especially, they had a.
They're
huge
talented at
advantage.
more positions than the Patriots are. Yes. But you look at the quarterback position and you look at the head coach position. They're insanely better.
Yes.
And that makes a difference against every team.
Anyways, I'll still take a 13-3 winning season, go to the Super Bowl, and play disappointing. I'll take that any day of the week,
Absolutely.
any year. Obviously,
I'll take that 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
If you guys don't get that, Josh is a Bills fan.
Anyways, let's move on to the NFL offseason. It's probably the most talked about offseason for the 4 major sports in America. And there's a bunch of huge headlines this offseason that we all want to talk about. So let's start with Josh. What's the main headline you're looking at going into this NFL offseason?
Nick Foles. I'm insanely excited to see where this guy ends up, to get his opportunity to get a starting job again that like he hasn't had for a few years, after he picks up that Super Bowl MVP, after he makes another good run to get to the playoffs. He's got a lot more confidence now. He's going to get a starting job somewhere and hopefully change around a franchise. I'm very excited to see which franchise gets the opportunity to have Nick Foles, whether they acquire him via trade or free agency. If the Eagles choose to tag him, which I hear they might, he will not be on the Eagles in 2019, and I'm very excited to see where he ends up.
So if you were to go to Vegas and put money on where Nick Foles is going to land, where do you think he's going to go?
I'll give you an answer. I'd say either Tampa Bay or Washington if he doesn't stay with the Eagles. The reason why
he's not staying with the Eagles.
Well, okay, so if he doesn't stay with the Eagles, I think he goes to Tampa Bay or Washington. Why? Washington doesn't have a good quarterback right now. They don't have a good situation. Alex Smith came off of a tough injury. Who knows where he's at right now in his rehab. I think he's a solid addition and a good system and an opportunity for Washington to actually get back into the conversation in the NFC. Now, my issue is Nick Foles is another one of those quarterbacks. I don't want to throw Jimmy Garoppolo into this, but I'll throw a guy like Brian Hoyer into this, where you see a backup quarterback play in a good system, do a good job, win some games. Even Rex Grossman is an example if you want to go way back when he played in the Super Bowl with the Bears. Everyone highly touts them, thinks they're great quarterbacks. They come into an average team. The Browns had a lot of trouble with this, with those types of quarterbacks, and they don't perform as well as they should have. So will Nick Foles go to a team and perform really well? I'm not sure, but he succeeded in Kansas City as well as a backup in his short time there. So I think he could go to Washington, be in a good system, and perform well.
I think that what he needs is good surroundings. I agree with you, and that's why I think he's going to go somewhere with good surroundings. Go somewhere that has an elite defense, maybe a defense that hasn't lived up to its potential in the last year or two, but definitely has the potential to be the top defense in the NFL. Go to a team that has a nice two-headed monster in the backfield. Go to a team that has a nice veteran wide receiver out there. Go to a team where one of the executives is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and that's why I think next year you'll see Nick Foles in a Denver Broncos jersey. I think it's just a perfect fit. It's one of the most John Elway moves you could possibly make, and it just makes way too much sense for me to not see Nick Foles in a Broncos uniform next year.
Well, so John Elway has been a miss on quarterbacks other than Peyton Manning, and you can't go wrong signing Peyton Manning because he's probably the greatest regular season quarterback of all time. Top 5 quarterback of all time.
Smartest player to ever play the game.
So he went with Paxton Lynch. We drafted Paxton Lynch. That was a huge failure. They never really gave him an opportunity, but that's whatever it is. Trevor Siemian, who they chose over Paxton Lynch, he wasn't very good. They missed the playoffs with the number 1 defense in the NFL with Trevor Siemian. Then they went to Chad Kelly, who they thought was going to be good, and he's been arrested. And then Case Keenum, who was proven was a system quarterback in Minnesota, was absolutely terrible when not throwing the ball to Emmanuel Sanders this year, and that was proven once Emmanuel Sanders got hurt. They just had no offense. So the question is, does John Elway want to take another gamble on a quarterback who, when he has expectations, hasn't been the greatest, but when he hasn't had any expectations, like when he's been on the Eagles as a backup at KC, we'll see if he wants to do it.
I think it makes a lot of sense because they'll be able to get out of that Keenum contract this offseason and only have, $2 million in dead cap from that?
One year was guaranteed. Give him a chance to prove it.
And there's nothing on it this year?
There's nothing on it.
Even better. So get rid of him. He's out of there. Maybe get some trade value for him if you can. I doubt they will.
Keenum has no trade value.
Exactly. And bring Nick Foles in on a shorter-term deal, sort of like the Case Keenum deal, maybe more like the deal Foles had in Philly where he's getting paid based off of starts and wins and more of that than on a full salary with a lot of incentives. See how he can do for a few years. I think he'll end up playing very well out there where he's got a great situation, great defense, great running backs, great old receiver, great young receiver, and see what he can do out there.
Okay.
And just to end on the point of Nick Foles. So real quick, I said the Redskins, now looking back at it, their cap space, having Colt McCoy and Alex Smith, can't afford them to get Nick Foles. If you want to look at Vegas, which I know you guys are interested in, Bovada has the Dolphins at plus 205, the Redskins at plus 250, which apparently won't happen, Jaguars at plus 350, Broncos, as you mentioned, Josh, at plus 400, the Giants at plus 900. I'm actually interested in that.
That would be very interesting, but I think if he were to go to the Giants or the Redskins as well, it would have to be in a free agency move and not in a trade move because you're not going to see the Eagles trading a quarterback like Nick Foles in their division. I just can't imagine that. I agree.
And, I like the Dolphins, actually. That's an interesting move for him, but the odds of that happening seem a little bit
It's an interesting fit, but I think, like we talked about earlier, their plan is to win when Brady and Belichick leave, like every other team in that division is planning, and that's why I think they'll look to the draft for a quarterback, whether it be this year or next year.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next off-season lookout. So we'll go to Malad. And Malad, he's our newest member of the podcast. You guys don't really know what team he supports football-wise. But
You're
Malad,
about to find
would
out.
you like to tell us about the dog pound and the Cleveland Browns?
All I have to say is that Believe Land is back in 2019. I think they're going to do a really good job. Great season for the Browns, albeit 7-8-1. But, watching those games, I easily saw them being a team that could have won the division. I felt they could have won a lot of games that they lost. New Orleans is an example where they actually went to overtime.
I want to stop you right there. You say 7-8-1 was their record. I know, yes, their record was 7-8-1, but I don't like saying that they were a 7-8-1 team. I look at Baker Mayfield's record with that team and games that he was in. They were a 7-7 team because those 2 games with Tyrod Taylor don't matter for the future of this franchise. They were a 7-7 team, and you get rid of Hugh Jackson from that situation. What was their record once they fired him? Way over 500. They're a good-looking team when you look at the games that really matter for this franchise, and that's going to be a good way for them to sell some free agents to come to Cleveland.
And I tell you what, those first 2 games that they tied and lost, New Orleans they could have beat easily. The Steelers, they went to a tie, which is pretty rare to see in football, and I felt they could have won that game. So for me personally, when I look at the Browns, they went and got Todd Monken as their offensive coordinator, who is a guy that used to coach at offensive coordinator for Oklahoma State. So now he's coming in. He's very familiar with Baker for sure, even though Baker went to Oklahoma. Then you have Stephen Wilkes, who's coming in at defensive coordinator. He's a guy that was a defensive coordinator, or the head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. I think, I watched their interviews and their press conferences, which I think you guys should check out if you want to know more about it. I felt they did really good. I understand why John Dorsey hired them. I see the game plan. And, Freddie Kitchens coming in as head coach, I think he should have been the offense coordinator and Greg Williams should have been the head coach. That was my opinion. But I think Freddie Kitchens has really changed the culture in this Cleveland team. And you have Baker Mayfield to build around. That's your starting quarterback. You have Nick Chubb, who is arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL, especially coming out of the draft. Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway. For me, I want to see them go get another big wide receiver, a guy that's a good red zone threat. They found Brashard Perriman to be good going deep, but again, it's Brashard Perriman, so we can't really rely on that too much.
Exactly.
David Njoku at tight end.
Love David Njoku.
Very, very underrated player.
David Njoku can play 100%. The offensive line looks really good. I can only name Joel Bitonio, but they've done a great job.
Austin Corbett looked good.
Austin Corbett looks great.
They've played well, yes.
They can go draft some guys. Greg Joseph can actually kick the ball. Okay, he can actually kick the ball and make field goals.
So bouncing off that kicker point, Zane Gonzalez is a very good kicker, and he proved it when he went to Arizona this year, and he kicked well. He kicked well last year, and then he didn't kick well at the beginning of this year because apparently he was going through a groin injury. Whether that's true or not, they cut him, they moved on, and they found a good replacement. So, back to you.
Jamie Collins, hey, we got him from the Patriots, okay? We get a lot of guys from the Patriots. They always do great, okay?
They get a lot of guys from you, too.
Yes. Jamie Collins is amazing. Joe Scooby Schobert. This guy can play for sure at middle linebacker,
He's a
okay?
beast.
Christian Kirksey was on IR. He's going to come back and do a great job. Their front 4, Myles Garrett. I don't even need to say anything about that. Everyone knows who Myles Garrett is. Denzel Ward. Everyone was questioning that pick at number 4. Everyone was questioning that pick.
I still think they should have went with Bradley Chubb. That would have been so awesome.
That would have been an insane pair.
In a perfect world, it's Saquon Barkley at 1, Baker Mayfield at 4. But since you couldn't guarantee that, I'll take Denzel Ward
very
every
good
day
draft.
of the week.
Yes.
Jabril Peppers out there in safety. Demarius Randall from Green Bay. This team is just firing on all cylinders. Now, let's remember, they have another draft where they get new guys. In the past 2 seasons, they've drafted Myles Garrett, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, and Denzel Ward in their first 2 rounds. Those are the most notable guys that I think of. I think they'll have an opportunity this season to shore up their defensive lines, their offensive lines, get a couple positions where it isn't a quarterback or running back, and fix their first 2 rounds, and I think they'll have a great team this season.
Don't forget about free agency either. They've got cap space on cap space to use this year, like they do every year. But this year, you can finally sell the Cleveland Browns to free agents, and I think they'll be able to do that very well. But Malad, I've got one question for you about this Browns team. So let's say you're John Dorsey for one day, right? Mm-hmm. You're in his office.
I'd love to be John Dorsey.
You get to make one move. What move are you making?
I'm trading for Antonio Brown. That's the move.
Really?
100% agree with you, yeah.
However many draft picks it takes, I don't care.
You give up your first-round pick this year?
I give up my first-round pick this year for John Dorsey.
Really? Give up your
I don't complain.
Wow.
Listen, I mean, Jay Ajayi was for what, a 6th-round pick? I mean, he was for a late-round pick, and he was one of the premier running backs, at least, trending-wise, for that season where he was traded, okay? So I'd easily trade a first-round pick for Antonio Brown, but I trust what John Dorsey's doing. I think the culture has changed in Cleveland, and I think you got a winning ball club that I predict they win the division this year. That's my bold prediction for them.
I don't know if I disagree with you, but imagine the team they'd be putting out on the field if they had Antonio Brown. If you're going 3 receivers, a tight end, and a running back, you got Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry, Antonio Callaway with David Njoku and Nick Chubb. That's something special for Baker to play with.
That's young. That's young.
That's something special.
The amazing part about this is we haven't even mentioned Duke Johnson. I haven't even mentioned Duke Johnson.
He's a great running back option out of the backfield.
One of the best running backs out of the backfield in the game.
Yes.
And what I loved about Freddie Kitchens is when you watch those Browns games where he took over at offensive coordinator, the nickname they give him in Cleveland is that he throws the kitchen sink at every team on defense, okay? And he does exactly that. He just comes out for a possession and just throws all 3 running backs, Nick Chubb, Duke Johnson, Dontrell Hilliard, and they run almost like a Navy-type offense where it's just a pistol wing, whatever you call it. And they just have all 3 running backs. They do read option, read option, read option, and go down the field and get a touchdown. That's what I love about Freddie Kitchens. And, Greg Williams is gone. I hope Steve Wilkes can pick up where he left off, and I hope this defense can be exactly what it was last year.
Yeah, and Steve Wilkes was a great defensive coordinator at Carolina, and then for some reason the Cardinals decided to get a defensive-minded head coach before drafting a young rookie at quarterback. It just didn't work out. That's why they fired him, because they realized they made a mistake, and hopefully Wilkes can produce like he did in Carolina with their insane defense and get another opportunity to get a head coaching job where he actually fits. Mm-hmm. Let's move on to our next off-season headline. Let's move over to Mr. Jordan Goldman, and what would you like to be looking at this offseason?
Kyler Murray, okay? Most of you guys listening probably know what's going on with Kyler Murray. Baseball or football? That's it. Is he going baseball or is he going football? Now, last year, end of last year, on to January of this year, he has been teasing the media basically on, I'm going to play baseball, I'm going to play baseball. And now, today, it comes out that Kyler Murray is declaring for the Combine. Now, what does that tell us?
He's going to the draft.
He's going to the draft. That means that his contract with the A's is most likely gone, and that's if he signs with a football team. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
If, in my opinion, Kyler Murray, he'll be a first or second round pick, okay?
First round pick.
He'll be a first round pick, for sure. I don't think he will last in the NFL for very long, because he's a 5'9" quarterback, small. 5'11". 5'11" quarterback, still small. He's really fast, but he's small. You can't be small in the NFL. It's tough.
I agree.
Well, you can be a small quarterback if you stay in the pocket.
Exactly.
Once you get outside the pocket, you're more prone to getting hit and getting hurt. Because that's why Drew Brees, who everyone questioned being so small, he's thrived in the NFL because he stays in the pocket where he's protected. He's protected by his offensive linemen, protected by the referees. But there's quarterbacks like Johnny Manziel, Tyrod Taylor, who once they get outside of the pocket,
and Tyrod gets banged up.
Been getting hit. They get injured. I mean, obviously that wasn't Manziel's problem, but that's why they don't last as long. And that's my concern about Lamar Jackson.
The average player or average quarterback plays about 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years. But obviously Kyler Murray is not the average quarterback. He'll play about 4 or 5, in my opinion, if he goes to the NFL. I think most people know that if you go to the MLB, you have a long-lasting career. Your career, lasts longer. You're
but that doesn't mean you'll spend the whole career in the MLB. You might end up in the minors for a while.
Right, you're right. But I think he'd be a better baseball player than he is a football player, and he will last longer, and he will make more of the big bucks than he would in the NFL if it's about money.
It's not all about money, though. That's the thing. That's what I want. That's the point I wanted to bring up. The other night, I was just sitting at home relaxing, and I was watching an interview Kyler Murray did with Deion Sanders. And Dion obviously played football and he played baseball. He had the opportunity to play both. He was talking to Kyler. He was saying, see, the thing about me and you that's different is that Dion was able to play both sports because Dion was a cornerback. Kyler is a quarterback, obviously, and he has a lot more work he's got to put in for football than Deion Sanders ever did, and he would not be able to play both sports. And Deion Sanders was talking to whoever he was on NFL Network with after that interview, and he said from what he took away from that interview, it looks like Kyler Murray loves football and just really likes baseball, and he thinks that Murray will end up playing football next year.
Yeah, and so I think that he could have a better career, performance-wise in the MLB, and I agree with you that, Jordan. But he has the opportunity to build himself a brand by going to the NFL because, let's be real, the MLB audience is never, ever, ever going to be anywhere near the NFL. And he has the opportunity to sign deals with Adidas and companies like that.
And that brings me back to the money standpoint.
Just by being an average quarterback. And if you're in the MLB...
Not even that. The average quarterback makes $20-something million a year right now. Wait till 5 years from now when Kyler's getting a second contract. It's going to be big bucks.
If he earns it.
Correct.
So he has the opportunity to make more money right now in football. But if he wants to have a long-lasting career where he makes even more money, I feel like baseball is a better option. Right. But go back to your point, Jordan.
This brings back the money standpoint. That it's just if he wants to play for it gets those deals, Adidas, Nike, Under Armour, and all those brands. That's about the money. If he wants to have a long career, you play baseball, and if he wants to play it for the love of the game, that's up to him.
Yeah.
But if he wants to make more money, I guess football is the option.
And I definitely like to see Kyler Murray be successful, whatever he does. I mean, I know everyone does. But, seeing him in a baseball uniform for the Oakland A's, I like it. I like him in an Oakland A's uniform playing outfield.
It fits.
I think he could definitely be successful with the Oakland A's. But I think if he really, really is passionate about football like he says he is, I think he'll go to the NFL. I think he'll still have a chance to be a big-time quarterback. But, I mean, Russell Wilson still suits up playing baseball,
in spring training.
He still shows up to spring training, Tim Tebow was able to, be a Mets minor leaguer. He still kind of is. I don't even want to get to that topic, but, I could see Kyler Murray suiting up in an A's uniform, and I really would like to see that. But like you guys said, I don't know if the casual fan would want to see that compared to him playing football.
Let's say Kyler does put on a football jersey in September. What jersey do you want it to be? What do you think is the best fit for him? What do you think is the most exciting for him?
I like Miami.
Miami, really?
If he can go to Miami, I really like him in Miami. Just give that team some actual culture, Ryan Tannehill was a problem in that locker room from very early on, I mean, I remember him.
He was a wide receiver in college. No NFL player wants a wide receiver in college playing at quarterback for them.
Exactly. And, I remember, a practice squad guy picked him off in training camp, and he starts a fight with him. Brady, on the other hand, would pay guys on the practice squad to pick him off. He'd want guys to pick him off. He'd want the toughest look that he could get. Right. Whereas Tannehill is thinking, it'll make me look bad by getting intercepted by a practice squad guy.
Yeah.
I didn't like his mentality. I didn't like what he did in the locker room. He wasn't a leader from the very beginning. And I think Kyler Murray could be what Baker Mayfield was for the Browns, for the Dolphins.
Wow.
To be a first-round pick in the MLB and to be a potential first-round pick in the NFL, that's extremely difficult. Now, this goes back to the long-lasting career thing. If he wants to play baseball, it's more of a long-lasting career. He'd make a lot of money, but he'd make more money in the NFL. In my opinion, I think baseball is the better route career-wise and staying healthy. But in the end, if he wants to make more money, go to the NFL. And if he likes the NFL more, and if he really loves the game, obviously go to the NFL. And I would be happy with both. I would just want to see him play in whatever sport because I love both sports equally just as much.
And I'd like to point out that Johnny Manziel was drafted by the Padres.
Exactly.
In the 38th round or something like that.
He wasn't as
really
good as Kyler Murray.
Nowhere near Kyler Murray. But who knows if he had suited up in a Padres uniform instead of going to the Browns, who knows what would have happened. We'll never know.
Yeah. So if Kyler Murray, I would personally love to see Kyler Murray in. I want to see him as a Raider. If I'm being completely
Really?
honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
I was thinking
It's flashy.
I agree
Yeah,
with
that's
you.
flashy.
I
I think-
agree with you.
because I mean, Derek Carr, he's kind of struggled the past couple of years. He had a decent year this year, but
His contract's too big.
I don't know if Derek Carr is the man in the future
Right.
for the Raiders. I don't want to say in Oakland because
That just doesn't sound very Gruden to me, though.
Well,
Gruden loves Carr.
Yeah.
Not even Gruden loves
I don't know,
Carr.
Gruden
Gruden
and-
doesn't sound like a Kyler Murray guy.
Gruden and Carr kind of butted heads this year a bit.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
but that's
obviously,
what
you're
makes
gonna,
them great. I think that's what's gonna make them a contender. But yeah,
obviously they're gonna butt heads when you're 3-13 and just
Mhm.
getting your butt kicked by everyone except the Steelers. Haha, Mr. Black. So I
they
just
also
kind
beat the Browns
Hmm.
on a missed call by the referees. But yeah,
yeah. I just kind of want to see him in that silver and black. I feel like that would be a cool look, and playing in Vegas, that'd be awesome.
That'd be interesting.
Anyways, Josh,
But
where do
here's-
you think he's gonna end up, Josh?
Honestly, I don't know where he's going to end up, but I just can't stop imagining him and Saquon running the read option.
Thank you.
I just
I
think
was going to say the Giants too.
that would be the most spectacular pairing, and him throwing the ball to Odell Beckham in the Big Apple. That's
Think about it.
a flashy
Think about
football team in New York
Basically,
City.
2 running backs. Okay? Basically 2 running backs. That's insane.
Three.
With one guy with an arm.
Odell
I mean-
runs. Just
Odell has the arm.
Yeah.
Odell has
I don't
the
understand.
arm.
No, but I don't think he'll end up in New York. I think they will end up with Dwayne Haskins, but I think that would just be an insane pair.
Right.
I
I
don't want
agree
to
with
go
you,
too
actually.
deep into the Giants, but there's no way they can screw up their quarterback situation. There's no way. They have so many options on the table, from Nick Foles to Kyler Murray to even Dwayne Haskins. Who
Joe Flacco. We're not even talking about Joe Flacco.
how
He's
are they
elite.
gonna
He
me-
is elite.
There's
Joe
no way they
Flacco
can mess up their
Is
quarterback.
literally Eli Manning 5 years younger.
Whatever.
That's-
Anyways, Kyler Murray. Great discussion. We've spoken on previous podcasts about Kyler Murray. We all love Kyler Murray. I got to
Boy, is he a
experience
fun kid to
firsthand watching him play in the Orange Bowl. It was pretty awesome. And he was so entertaining, him and Tua. That was such a great game. And we hope he makes the right decision for his future, because I feel like he's either going to be in the MLB or a starting quarterback in the NFL in 3 years, whether it's on some team that's not ready to compete in the NFL yet, or he's going to be on the A's someday. And we all love Kyler Murray. We wish him the best. So my off-season topic that I'm looking forward the most to is the drama situation in Pittsburgh, and what team will Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell suit up for next season, because the Steelers for the past 3 or 4 years have been one of the most entertaining teams to watch. The Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, now Juju Smith-Schuster, that offense has been so dynamic, and they've just missed out on so many opportunities. And their opportunity, frankly, looks like it's gone, because Le'Veon Bell, he held out, didn't play a single snap this season, and Antonio Brown didn't show up to practice and didn't even suit up for Week 17. So I'm very curious to see where these two players end up, because Le'Veon Bell, he's a free agent. Not a chance he goes back to Pittsburgh with the year
chance.
James Conner had. And Antonio Brown, he's under contract for the next 2 years with the Steelers. This upcoming season, money's fully guaranteed. He's owed $20 million, so the Steelers can't cut him, because that'd be a huge waste of money. So they're looking to trade him. I wonder where he's going to get traded. Anyone else have their thoughts on this?
My solution for the Steelers is to follow the Billy Bean game plan in baseball. So what I think they do is keep James Conner. He's your running back from now on. Le'Veon, he can go somewhere else.
And
He
Samuels
can
is
find
a
new
solid
place to
backup.
play. Samuels is a very solid backup. Le'Veon, if he wants to have that attitude and he doesn't want to play football with the Steelers, he doesn't need to play football with the Steelers.
I agree with you.
Antonio Brown, trade him. Get as many picks as you can for him.
Where?
Don't pull a Jay Ajayi and ask for a 6th round pick just because you're so desperate to ship him. But even if they do that, I think they'll be fine. Why? Because I think they can go draft highly talented wide receivers to complement Juju Smith-Schuster. I think their defense can be shored up. They do have guys in there. They just need to mix some pieces.
Their defense
And if you get some draft picks for Antonio Brown, you can do it with those draft picks.
Exactly. So I think take the Oakland A's route. Ship all these guys that are overrated, okay? Guys who are supposed to be big contract guys. Let them walk. James Conner proved himself. You have Juju Smith-Schuster, who also proved himself.
Good tight end duo.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse James can play for sure.
Vance McDonald had a great year.
Exactly. I mean, take that chance. Trust your young guys. You'll have cap space because of it, and go make a move in the market.
Just the one point I want to bring up is that if I could pair any team with any free agent this offseason, no doubt in my mind it's Le'Veon to the Colts. I just think that's such an incredible fit to see Le'Veon Bell getting the ball from Andrew Luck, just to see how amazing that offense would be if you add Le'Veon Bell behind that offensive line and you still have those weapons on the outside for Andrew Luck to throw to with a great offensive-minded coach like Frank Reich. I think they could really, with Eric Ebron too, I think they could really do some damage this year if they pick up Le'Veon Bell.
I've seen talks, or predictions at least, of him going to the Jets, which I actually also like because the Jets, I mean, they have Bilal Powell.
They don't have a running back.
Exactly.
Let's be real.
So, Sam Darnold, young quarterback, don't want to make him throw too much. Le'Veon's right there. They have Greg Williams, the defensive coordinator. I think they're an interesting team, and they're a contender straight away if they get Le'Veon.
The thing about that that's really interesting is I don't think Le'Veon wants $20 million a year. I don't think any running back deserves that money, to be perfectly honest with you.
Frankly, shouldn't even be paid $15 million a year.
I agree.
I mean,
but honestly,
Todd Gurley's the best in the league.
I agree. I honestly think Le'Veon's going to get the money that he wants, though, because you look at those two teams, the Colts and the Jets, I think those are the teams that are going to show the most interest in Le'Veon. And both of those teams are the two teams with the highest amount of cap space this offseason. And I think they're going to get into a good old-fashioned bidding war.
Yeah.
And it's going to be something special to watch. And I think he's going to get a fat contract.
Yeah,
and Le'Veon might come out the smart guy out of all of this. You know, everyone thought he was stupid for not.
He's going to get his money.
Holding out, and he's going to get his money and be happy. So
yeah, and what I think about this Le'Veon Bell situation is that I don't think it was smart because when James Conner came into this system and he put up arguably better numbers than him, and then Jalen Samuels, their third-string running back, came in and put up fantastic numbers. It shows you the value of the Pittsburgh Steelers running back. You can plug anyone in, and they'll be successful, except for Stevan Ridley. And it just showed that Le'Veon Bell depended on that offensive line to open up those holes, and that he was very patient. He just bursted through those holes. And I don't think the Colts need a running back. I feel like they have what they want in Marlon Mack, Wilkins, and Nyheim Hines. They don't need to go out and spend money on Bell. They can go spend that money elsewhere. So I like him going to the Jets, what Milad said. And let's all, last word, where's Antonio Brown going to play next season?
I'm going to say Cleveland Browns.
I would love to see that. I really would, but San Francisco just makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
Give Jimmy G that weapon that he needs. He wants to end up in San Francisco. I think it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, I think San Francisco too. And
they've got the money for him.
Contracts.
They've got the money for him.
If he busts, they're done.
Yeah.
Correct.
3 busts, that would be Sherman. Garoppolo,
Sherman's not on that big of a
Garoppolo,
contract.
which is early, but technically could be a bust. And then you have Antonio Brown.
I agree with you, Milad. I think Antonio Brown will play for the Browns. I think he's just the best fit.
I can't imagine the Steelers trading him in the division.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that scares me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Sports Nerds in the Morning. It was a pleasure talking to you guys about the NFL. You'll hear Caleb, Jake, and Elon talking next week when we talk about MLB offseason again, the NBA trade deadline, which just happened. Some big trades went down. And we'll talk about March Madness and our preview for it for the first time on this podcast. So thank you guys once again for listening to Sports Nerds in the Morning.
Shout out Loyola Chicago.